Jai Bhim, Jai Mulyavati, Jai Savidan, Jai Bharat. I am really thankful to MNT Network for giving me the opportunity to speak on the topic which electoral system ensures real representation to marginalized sections. So this is the topic that is going to be discussed today. And as we know that 2024 elections are gearing up, and in this 2024 elections, which are very near, India's 900 million voters are in the process of electing their parliament for the next 5 years. And in very soon, the dates of the elections are going to be announced, and everybody is curious to know what will happen in 2024 elections. So today we are going to discuss about the general elections 2024 and mainly on the electoral process that has been followed in India and does it require any change? So that's the topic for discussion. As we know, elections are always fascinating, important, and most of the times crucial, as they always decide who eventually will be representing the people in the democracy. Government is to be formed by the people through voting, which they votes in every 5 years. Every 5 years there are elections and people are voting and candidates are getting elected for the lower house of the parliament. An electoral system is the one which translates these votes into seats. And as far as India is concerned, India is a democratic country, and democracy means rule or the government by the people. So, by the people, for the people. This is the basis of democracy. It follows that the government is elected by the majority with the broad principle of one citizen, one vote, one value. And as India is a democratic country, it is run by three main pillars. One is the legislature, where the policies or laws are created. Second is the executive, who implements or executes the policies that have been framed in the legislature. And third is the judiciary, which keeps eye on both the institutions so that they function democratically as per the constitutional norms. And if we see, as far as the electoral system is considered, India has adopted the FPTP, first past the post electoral system. So, what is that FPTP system? This FPTP system is like, for example, a horse race where all the horses they come forward and they are in the race, and whosoever the fastest horse who captures the post first is get he is elected or he is declared as he had won the race. So in the same way, all the candidates are put forth for the elections in the form of voting, and whosoever gets more vote is declared as elected. So the valid votes, the largest number of valid votes, whosoever gets, he is declared as elected. And every citizen of India, we know that they cannot go to the legislature, so they send their representatives. So Indian citizens, basically, they are sending their representatives to the governing bodies like Lok Sabha, assembly elections, and all. And see the overall representativeness character of the Lok Sabha. It has 543 almost constituencies or 543 seats from where the representatives are elected and they are sent to the parliament. So if we see how the figure of this is arrived, it is basically based on the population of India. And if we see in 1950, when the population of India was almost 494 crore, and in 1961 it was 522 crore, and in 1971 it was 543 crore. So based on this population, the number of seats were declared. And if we see the first 1915 elections, it was almost average population of 7.3 lakh people were getting one seat. And in 1961, it rose to 8.4, whereas in 1971, it is almost 10.1 lakh. So roughly, there is one seat for 10 people. So depending on this population, the number of seats that each state will get is decided. And this is how the figure of 543 is arrived. And also in this 543, there are uh, different reserved seats also, elected seats also. Some of the seats are elected by the President of India also. So we see that out of these 543 seats, Lok Sabha seats, 512 are general. And again, based on the population of scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, scheduled caste is having almost 15% of population. So 84 seats are reserved for them, whereas 7.5% is the reservation for scheduled tribe. So 47 seats of 543 means 7.5% of 543, which comes out around 47. So 84 seats for SC and 47 seats for scheduled tribe based on the population. This is how the overall number of seats are governed basically. So 131 seats are reserved, whereas 412 seats are general. In India, electoral method becomes crucial with the multi-caste, multi-religious, and deeply unequal society. Citizen sends their representative. It means that majority of choice of majority of the people should be selected. But actually, what happens when voting results are out and we see that candidates are getting almost around 30% of votes and they got elected. And if we see that if a particular candidate in one of the constituency he gets 30% votes, means if, for example, in that particular constituency there are 100 people, it means that 30 people are in favor of that particular candidate. It also means that 70 people are not in favor of the candidate because 70% has not voted for that particular winning candidate. So how this process works? So thereby it can be safely assumed that the winning candidate has secured just above 30% of the votes of the total electorate in a constituency and is still expected to represent all the interests of that particular constituency. Though 70% people have not voted for him, still he is a representative of that particular constituency. So mainly elected representatives in India, they believe that they had won because of a powerful community chunk of votes. So some community has worked, had given the vote, so he should work for them, and he should not. He should ignore the others. That is how the tendency of the elected representatives are. They feel that they are answerable to those caste or those communities which helped them in electoral win and tend to ignore the other part. And this other part specifically are suffered by the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, other backward classes, and the minorities people. Even if we see the first general elections, which was held in 1950 and 52, Congress government they received 45% of the vote and won 364 of the 489 total seats. In the first election, there are 489 number of Lok Sabha seats, and the second position was for Socialist Party, which received almost 11% of vote, and they won 12 seats. So even the first election, we see that the party which was a majority one party, they got not more than 50% vote. They also got less than 50% vote, but still they got elected and they came to the power. And from any constituency, none of the elected members received more than 50% of the votes. So majority of votes each candidate has not got in his particular constituency. So the question arises whether such system justifies the basic principle of representativeness of the constituency, whether that candidate is really representing that particular constituency. If all the people has not voted or more than 50% people has not voted for him, but then what is an alternative? What is alternative system? So and also whether these flaws in the system was not discussed in the Constituent Assembly debates when these rules were formalized or this FPTP system was declared to be adopted as far as the parliamentary democratic country India is considered. What were Dr. Ambedkar's views on this electoral system of India? All these questions are arising into our mind. So we will just see and glance through these systems. FPTP system first past the post has several advantages due to which it is considered to be the simplest electoral system. The first advantage is clarity. It is the very easiest system to understand. The choices of the voters are clear and the counting is also simple and straightforward. As soon as the votes are counted, the winner is immediately evident. The system also guarantees one representative for each constituency who is accountable to his particular electorate, which is not necessarily the case in other part of voting system, which we will see. The third advantage is that candidates get to know their relative support in the constituency, unlike other parties where electors vote for the party and not for the individual candidates. Even if we see before the British government era, before the independence era specifically, British government provided for a separate electorate system to the Muslims in the Indian Councils Act of 1909. 117 seats were kept reserved for Muslims. Accordingly, the general elections of 1937, which were held on the basis of extended separate electorates, where only the Muslims voted for the 117 seats in Bengal. In the election to provinces or state assemblies in India in the year 1937 and 1946, this is before independence I am talking, there were separate electorate constituencies for religious minorities. Of the 1,585 assembly seats in 11 provinces, they had almost 34 separate electorate seats in two provinces. The Muslim had 482 seats, Anglo-Indians have 11 seats, the Europeans have 24 seats, and the Indian Christians have 20 seats. So of the electoral seats, 13 were reserved for women belonging to minorities. So if we see this particular act of 1909 and the separate electorate process, all the constituents of the social system, the Muslims, the Christians, the Sikhs, the even women, they were represented in the provincial elections. So till the partition of India, means till 1947, the draft constitution it provided reserved seats for minorities and the untouchables. But unfortunately, Sardar Patel chose to abolish this system of reserved seats for minorities. But due to Dr. Ambedkar's struggle and fight in roundtable conference, continuous two roundtable conferences, he could succeed in getting the reserved seats for untouchables. But Gandhi didn't accept the separate electorate and kept himself fast unto death to dissolve the system. The Pune Pact was signed on 5th September, on 21st September 1932, and instead of separate electorate, the pact introduced the concept of reserved seats for the untouchables in the provincial and the central legislative bodies. So these reserved seats were to be filled through a joint electorate system where all the communities would vote together. Dr. Ambedkar in separate electorate referred that only his people or the reserved people should vote for the reserved constituency people, and the general people should not vote. So his argument was with this system, the real character or real representative can get elected and he can raise his voice, his people's voice in the parliament. So this is how he thought of. But Gandhi insisted that such type of system should not be there, and all people, all communities people should vote for the person who is standing even in the reserve constituency seat. So even the reserve constituency seat, the fate of the candidate is decided by non-untouchables. So the real representative are not reaching the parliament who can raise the voice of their people as their representatives. So this is all about FPTP part of the electoral system. Now let us discuss something about other electoral system. So other electoral system that was discussed during the assembly debates was of proportional representation systems, also called as PR system, proportional representation. What this system is? Proportional representation is a type of voting system used for elections in which parties gain their seats in proportion to the number of votes cast for them. So here, basically, the parties they come up with the list of their candidates, and the voters are allowed to vote for the parties instead of the candidates. So they vote for the parties, and the tabulation is done for the percentage of votes each party has received. Now, suppose the tabulation is made and there are 543 seats in the Lok Sabha. So, if Congress gets 30% votes in the election, then 30% of the 543 seats will be given Congress. If BSP wins 22% seats, so 22% of the 543 seats will be given to the BSP political party. If People's Party of India Democratic, if they have 10% of votes, so 10% of the 543 number of Lok Sabha seats will be given to that People's Party of India Democratic. So this is how the representation was ensured through the political proportional representation. So these proportional representations, it had certain advantages as well as it has certain disadvantages also. The proportional reservation system, it by contrast, tend to offer a better chance of representation to the smaller parties and independent candidates, because here it is not the winning of the candidate, but what percentage of votes each party has got. So definitely, when the parties are standing for they are standing the candidates, or they are coming up in the elections, they will receive some percentage of votes, and depending on the percentage of votes, each party will get the number of seats based on their proportion. So here there are the chances in this proportional representation system. There are chances that one party will not get majority of seats. So like if in the FP system, there are basically, if any political party gets 45 seats, like we saw in the first election, there were almost 45% of votes were received by the Congress government, and they had one 364 seats. But 364 seats out of 489, we can see that it was more than 45%. So if it is more than 45% in the proportional representation, these restrictions could be there. They will not get 45% of the seats, that is for 364 seats, they will not get. They will get only whatever the percentage of votes they receive in this particular elections. So there are chances that the smaller parties will also get represented, and the independent candidates will also get represented. Women's candidates will also get represented. Muslims can also get represented. Christians can also get represented, and Buddhists, Sikhs, every minority can get represented with the help of this proportional representation. If the people are voting for the parties, and parties are get giving parting are taking care of all the minorities as well as all the citizens are represented in their particular list. The proportional representation system ensures that the parties would have to appeal to their core supporters rather than the small number of so-called swing voters in the marginal seats. And it also produces absolute majority for one party. However, it could be argued that proportional representation ensures greater continuity of government and requires greater consensus in the policy making. So, whenever the policy making will be discussed in the parliament, then every member will have a chance to say his views or to express his views for that policy, and he definitely will ensure that that policy should help or should be proportionate in such a way that every citizen of India will get benefit from that policy. And the marginalized section, particularly, they will also get benefit from that policy. So there is another disadvantage of this particular proportional representation system is that it can produce weak coalition governments rather than strong majority governments. So this is also a issue that is getting discussed so long for the last 2 decades, that whether there, because there are after 1991-92 Mandal Commission Ayog implementation, we can see the swift change in the political era, and there is a formation of coalition governments after that, and there is not a strong majority governments in one party is not fully coming in majority, and the coalition governments are there. So whether the coalition governments or the strong majority governments, that is again a part of debates and debatable topic. But as far as the overall representation and the policies are considered, definitely the weak coalition governments can get more policies in favor of the marginalized sections of the society. And if the strong majority governments are there, then it can become a monopoly of the particular party, because they have the number of candidates to produce the majority for passing any bill. And basically, if we see that the proportional representation can also reduce the accountability voters, because voters are voting for the party and they are not voting for the candidates. So accountability of voters towards the candidate will get reduced. So this is one of the danger. The adoption of the PR system can weaken the link between the elected representative and his or her constituency. That is again there between the voter and the elected representative. The link can get weakened, and doubts about the representativeness of the country's polity increased after the victory of BJP-led NDA coalition in the 2014 general elections, as ideological battle line between the ruling dominant party and the opposition became more pronounced. Since it came to power at the center, the BJP-led government had been accused of being aggressive and confrontational in its overall approach towards not only its political opponents but also institutions such as judiciary, non-governmental organizations, and the media, and all are under question now. The 2014 general elections have resulted in one of the lowest Muslim representation. There are almost 160 million of Muslims in our country, but only 23 Muslims were elected in the 2014 general elections, 16th Lok Sabha elections. So this is again not proportional to the overall population. Professor C.P. Bhamri, he writes that if Muslims are not made to participate in the democratic process, a section among the community may take to undemocratic methods to resolve their problems. Before relinquishing office, former Vice President even Hamid Ansari sir expressed concern over enhanced apprehension of insecurity among the segments of our citizen body, particularly the untouchables, Muslims, and Christians. Underlining the values of pluralism and secularism enshrined in the Constitution, the former Vice President said that cultural nationalism is an illiberal form of nationalism, which promotes intolerance and arrogant patriotism. So during its almost 5 years of rule at the center, the BJP-led India government has shown little regard for the opposition. Many crucial decisions have been taken with little or no consultation with the opposition party leaders. The Modi government, by labeling controversial issues such as finance bills, has also tried to undermine the role of the Rajya Sabha, where every bill, barring the finance, must be voted and passed. So there have been many debates in the past over the need to change the electoral system and to suit the ground realities and make the polity more representative. However, the issue gathered momentum only after the 2014 Lok Sabha and 2017 Assembly elections. A parliamentary standing committee on personal, public grievances and law and justice from the Rajya Sabha has taken up the issue of electoral reforms, focusing on the PR versus FPTP debate. And they had given one questionnaire which was to each and every representative in the parliament. On March 20, 2017, the Rajya Sabha discussed the issue of electoral reforms, including the matter of paid news and the FPTP. The former election commissioner remarked that the long prevalent FPTP system is the one where winner takes all. Representatives of different political parties expressed concern that the present system can lead to a majoritarianism. The members wanted the system to be replaced by the proportional representation systems, which can ensure that every section of the citizen gets due representation. The system would also bring the cost of holding elections and reduce the divisive nature of electoral campaigns. So basically, if we see, India is a diverse country and its cultural and religious makeup is anything but homogeneous. Coalition politics has dominated the country's political culture for 2 decades. However, electoral victories through FPTP are becoming less convincing in the backgrounds of increasing literacy and rising popular awareness. One of the strong arguments against the FPTP system is that slight shift in the vote percentage can result in the landslide change in the seat share. So now the country must think about an alternative system to replace the FPTP system because currently the electoral system is itself the root cause of many problems of the governance. Money and muscle power has increasing the influence over the outcome of the electoral battles. It is to a large degree the negation of basic tenets of democracy. Candidates who are poor or from the marginalized section of society are at great disadvantage in the electoral system that favors the well off. They don't have money, they don't have muscle power, so they are not winning in the elections. Naturally, the parties that are on the wrong side of the corporates and stand for the interest of the working class are at disadvantage in this uneven contest. Money power titled the balance. It has tilted the balance and it has setting aside all the semblance of the fairness. Arguing for a change from FPTP to PR, basically proportional representation, counter the campaign for electoral reforms in India, Mr. MC Raj, he called the present FPTP systems is engineered towards exclusion of the disadvantaged sections of the society, especially the downtrodden women and the minorities. The present system was designed for two-party democracy. However, India is a multilingual and multi-language society and multi-party democracy. We have 1600 political parties. This throws up anomalies because the present system encourages corruption, use of muscle power, and communalism. He has argued in favor of proportional representation system. In proportional representation electoral system, any political party can gain seats only in proportion to the percentage of vote that it gains. There is no difference between the percentage of votes and the percentage of seats. Therefore, only parties with more percentage of vote support can attain power. In proportionate representation system, majority means more than 50% of the votes, but the other votes are not wasted. They are given to other candidates in order to provide representativeness to all the voters in the state assemblies of the parliament. Another member of the Constituent Assembly he argued that unless there is opposition, the danger of its turning itself into fascist body is there. So wherever there is a majority body or majority party who had won majority of the seats, there should be equally opposite strong opposition. Otherwise, the policies that will be framed will not be in a democratic forum or in a democratic framework because it may represent in the particular form of their majority. The bill may not be in favor of all the citizens of India. So uh, so, in the first place, or principle, there is nothing wrong in having the proportional representation. It is more scientific and democratic, and it will enable sections having different views from the majority party to be returned and thus form an opposition to the party in power. Otherwise, it will degenerate the party in power into fascist body. The Constituent Assembly rejected arguments in favor of PR on the grounds of stability of the government, illiteracy, and fear of failure in the backdrop of India's vision into two nations. So basically, there is much change has happened in last 75 years since the promulgation of the Constitution, and in these years, some glaring deficiencies of the FPTP system have come into light, mushrooming the political parties. The role of the money in the politics has grown up. Experts argue that there should be state funding of elections because of the role of big money. So people are now speaking of that the elections should be sponsored by the states. Today, India plays a major role in regional as well as in the international affairs and aspires to be a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. The Indian economy is becoming basically one of the strongest, fastest growing in the world. So, since there is continuous debates, various scholars and analysts are of the view that it is imperative to have a political stability, social harmony, communal amity, and domestic peace to achieve the levels of economic growth that can address challenging issues such as economical, social and economical inequality. So, political stability is one such crucial factor for creating favorable conditions for the constant economic growth so that problems of poverty, health, and illiteracy can be resolved. To ensure political stability and restrict attempts to change the fundamental, basic, and core character of the country's constitution by a party coming to power with a majority vote, with a minority vote, there must be adequate checks and balance system that prevents such attempts of emotional and sectarian exploitation of the electorate. It is therefore time to consider a change in the country's electoral system. Internationally, proportional representation is the most common electoral system that is in practice, though the FPTP system also is adopted in some of the countries. The top ranked countries on the Human Freedom Index 2022, an index which measures 83 indicators of personal and economic freedom, are countries which use the form of proportional representation for their elections. For example, Switzerland, New Zealand, Estonia, Denmark, Ireland, Sweden, Iceland, Finland, Netherlands, Luxembourg, and many other countries. Almost 73 countries use this proportional representation system to elect their MPs. So in India, a switch to the proportional representation system will pave the way for undertaking wider electoral reforms, such as funding of elections by the state and holding of simultaneous state assembly and the central parliament elections. Once the political parties reach a consequences or consensus, the incumbent governments can initiate a debate in the two houses of parliament to pave the way for introducing the proportional representation system by amending the Representation of the People Act 1951. So, since there is a continuous debates and discussions going on, the FPTP system, whereas the proportional representation system, which can give maximum representation of the citizen of India, that part is the main part of concern. So, India needs to have a brainstorming session on this particular system of proportionate representation system as well as the FPTP systems, and has to work out how the maximum people or each and every constituent of the social character system they gets represented in the parliament or they get represented in the assembly elections. So that is how if they are getting representation, then definitely their voices can be raised and their voices can be heard in the parliament. The policies can be framed for the parliament. Otherwise, the issues like the Kisan Andolans and all are going on. Since they don't have their representatives in the parliament, their issues, their problems are not discussed in the parliament, and they are not have proper backup. So they are the citizen of India. So since they are the citizens of India, their voices shall also be heard in the democratic setup. So if this has to be there, then the parliamentary government should ensure that it has the proportionate representation of each and every character of the social system. There should be representation of Muslims. There should be representation of Sikhs. There should be representation of Buddhists. There should be representation of women. So, every section of the social society they should get representation, and they representation not in the sense of just presence, but real representation, what Dr. Ambedkar thought of, because in joint electorate, there is definitely 22.5% reservations and 22.5% people are going in the are elected and are going in the parliament. But still, their voices are not raised because they are not the real representatives. So we need to adopt such a system that real representatives from each and every section of the society reaches the parliament and assembly elections, and they raise their voices there and they formulate the policies in favor of them. Definitely, if such type of developments are happening, then the citizens of India will be really be happy to have such a democratic setup within their countries, and they will be happy to live in such a democratic country. And if the people or the citizen of India are happy, then really the country can grow up, and this will definitely raise India's overall level in the international strata, or international level also. So this is the time to think on this particular aspect. Really thankful once again to MNT Network to giving me this opportunity to speak or to give my views on this particular aspect of which electoral system ensures real representation to marginalized sections. Thank you very much. Jai Bhim, Jai Mulnivasi, Jai Samvidhan, Jai Bharat.